So this is a conversation I was going to have with my friend David Ludman. He's a tenor sax player, and he's got this band that he works with, and they're fantastic. This particular recording is him on tenor, drums, B3. He's getting into mixing, and he gave me this mix, and I offered to take a listen and maybe do what I could, just at the mastering level. And this is what he sent. Excellent mix, nothing wrong with it. So as you can tell, beautiful mix. The only thing I could say is that it sounds, I'm exaggerating here, but it sounds like I can hear like a band on stage. I can hear the room, which is great. There's a lot of ambience, but I wanted to make it just a little tighter. I was also thinking that a little bit more glue on the side. The B3 is very wide. And there's also a lot happening in the overheads, and then there's that guitar, and I wanted to make sure that that was a little bit more glued so that you could perceive all of them on the sides. In the center, I thought the kick was again well EQ'd, but maybe a little bit slightly tighter. And then the tenor, I thought, could come forward. It's more of a lead instrument, and when it is playing against the entire band loudly, namely in those sections, you can hear it. But I thought maybe a little bit more brightness, a little bit more presence would be good. So the first thing I did is I created a mastering bus, and in it I put a Fairchild compressor in mid-side, which they call lateral vertical, but it's mid-side. And let's look at it work. So you can see the side is working a lot more than the kick in the center, the mid. But I also lowered it a lot so that overall I just add a little bit of glue without doing anything else. So let's hear it with and without. So that helps a little bit. It glues everything together. It brings the details on the side a little bit more, which is great because that's where the little guitars, muted stuff, and the B3 are. And also, I think it glues the kick and the saxophone a little bit more. So that was good. And I compensated so that it's not louder. I don't fool my ears into thinking, oh, this is better, because it's just louder. So I compensated the output so that on and off is gain matched. Okay. Then let's see what I did. I put an ozone 11, and I bypassed a lot of the stuff. I let the AI analyze and give me ideas, and then I master rebalance, tried to make the saxophone brighter. I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't like the equalization. Impact is more of like a dumbed down version of a multi-band compressor, I want to say. It's also a lot more subtle as a result, and I wanted to have the kick unaltered, but the low mids and high mids be a little bit more lively in terms of the dynamic range. The imager I use to widen the low mids because that's where the B3 is, that's where the sides are, and a lot of the dynamics, the wonderful crescendo that happens during the doo-dee, doo-dee, the chorus. I wanted that to just really come out. Didn't use the clarity, didn't use stabilizer. I use the exciter. It's a secret sauce that everybody should use. It just works by adding additional, creating and then blending in new additional sonic information, harmonics, and then blending that back with the original signal. And what the result is just everything is better somehow. Your ear enjoys the experience more, finds it more detailed. And so it's just a wonderful thing to do. I turned on oversampling because you want to do that. This is often trying to, most of the time, this attempts to recreate a nice analog situation. And in the analog field, we don't have a limitation of sampling rate to decide how precisely we are hearing audio. Audio comes in as a continuous analog signal. So in this case, to try to give us a little bit more of a precise look at what's happening, we oversample. It gives the internal engine of the ozone exciter more information to derive additional frequencies from. So it's a good idea. A little bit of tape in the low end is just wonderful for the kick and the sub-bassy aspect of the bass. Dual triode and triode, I like. It's a little bit less warm. It's a little bit brighter, but it's just what I wanted for the saxophone and the cymbals and the top part of the B3 there. And then just a little bit of tape to add a little bit of air there on top, and then a maximizer to get it to the right level. I don't hit it very hard. So that's the mastering bus. In terms of, once I started doing all of that, I noticed that there were moments where, first of all, I noticed that there were moments where the saxophone combined with the B3 in a particular register gets a little bit shrill-ish. So I tamed it a little bit with the way to think about this, if you've never seen the plugin, is the higher this is, the more this frequency is being affected by the process. So if I want the plugin to ignore this 2K area, I would do that. So I said, no, I want this. And then there was a little bit of a strange situation happening, kind of like a resonance, a build-up around 130, 140. So, but as you can see, the frequencies here seem drastic, or the amount seems drastic, but the depth, which is how hard the plugin is working, is not that high. So yeah, you can see that. I don't know if it's combining with the kick or something, but suddenly it just pops out. So this kind of gently massages it back to yumminess. Okay, so the last thing I noticed is that the bass was completely disappearing in a small speaker, and usually that's addressed at the mixing stage. You take the bass and you generate higher harmonics, kind of like you would do with the exciter. So what I did is I made a copy of the original, and I filtered it So let's see what I did here. Oh, I just killed the low end, but then I filtered it a lot. Then I compress it pretty heavily because I want it to stay in a pocket. I'm not trying to alter the dynamic range of the bass. I'm trying to make it consistently present in a higher register that it is a little bit weak in, which is probably going to be around 200, 250. So if I could make the bass exist more in that register, in that range, then even in a small speaker, I'm going to be able to hear it. I'm not saying it's going to sound bassy, but I'm going to hear that there's a bass line. And the kick, even though it mostly exists in the low end, there's still a sharper, higher in frequency area when the pedal hits the kick. And that you hear even in a small speaker. So you're not going to hear boom, but you're going to hear, right? And I want the same kind of feeling for the bass where you don't hear the full effect of it, but you know that it's there. And so I compress it because I want that signal to be very, very dependable, very regular. So I compressed it. Then I use an R bass, which is a resonator, is a Renaissance bass. It tends to not like an EQ, but more like a resonance thing. It boosts a particular frequency, and I set it around 92. So that's the area in which the bass exists mostly. You know, do 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 do. It's all around the fundamental note is around those frequencies, and so we're going to use that, boost it, and then use another plugin to generate upper frequencies from that original note. And for that, you need max bass. As you can see, max bass, there's an input fader, and then there's your original bass, and then there's a max bass. That's the additional information that's generated by the plugin. That's the original bass, kind of like a mix setting, 100% wet or not. So I have it on 100% wet. I even clicked max bass, which mutes everything else but this fader. And then the results, see, this is without. By itself, it sounds really bad, but you can tell the difference when I turn it on. When I turn it off, it's very, and when I turn it on, it's that we're going to feed right back into the mix, and hopefully in a way that if you have a full system, you don't notice it's there. But if you have a bad system, you do. So let's hear it without and with. So perfect. It's not like what we did drastically changes the normal experience. But on a small speaker, let's pull up this guy, reveal. It simulates different listening environment. Here's device. Let's listen without the guitar, the little bass sweetener, and with. So hopefully you hear the difference. It's very subtle, but it just allows the bass to kind of poke its head even in the worst listening environment, therefore translating better, which is the goal of the mastering engineer, ensuring that, or maximizing, helping a mix translate. Here's another thing I did. After I did everything at the mastering level, I noticed that something was missing during that chorus. that chorus blows up, the register of the B3 goes higher, and it's extremely wide. And when I did the compression, sure, it glued all the elements that are on the side more, but I also noticed that it kind of took a little bit of that brightness, that definition out, and I didn't want that. So let me bypass this. Oh. Compared to the original. You can definitely hear that the tenor is brighter, and that's the harmonic distortion on around between 2 and 4K. Okay, so anyway, I wanted to make sure that a little air on the overheads of the drums and a little bit of the brightness that's on the B3 could shine through and not be slightly dulled out by the Fairchild compressor. So I pulled up this Ozone EQ, I put it in mid-side, and I only affected the side. You know, let's hear with and without. Okay, and then I'll show you the last thing I did. The last thing I did was somewhere in this track there was a strange sound. Here, there's a note that goes boo, boo, right here. Boo, boo, boo. It's probably a string resonating or something, and it sounds to me like a mistake. Very hard to correct in a full mix, but that's what isotope is here for. If you look at it, you can see is this right here. And you can tell RX to basically nix that or blend it or reduce it by however much you want. So I did that, removed it, and let's compare. Versus it's just gone. There we go. Oh, another thing. Those are the kind of little details that you have to pay attention to when you do mastering. So check this out here. There's a little guitar there. He goes doo-doo. Easy to overlook, but when I get them and I'm thinking like a master engineer, these are the kinds of things that you're like, no. So I replaced it. They're just clean, you know? Last chance to find those little issues and make sure that they don't go to the final master. So hopefully this helps you think more like a mastering engineer. Like I said, I'm not God's gift to mastering. This is not what I do primarily. I would not call myself a mastering engineer, but I've done enough mastering that I know how important it is to understand and how much it can bring to the final result of your in terms of your production. So there we go. Again, the guy on tenor is David Ludman. These guys are based in New Orleans. If you've never been to New Orleans and you love music, I urge you to buy a one-way ticket and never come back. But yeah, thank you to David and his cats for sending me this. I look forward to the next one. And I hope this was helpful. Happy music.